Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome into week number 3 of our BrailleSense 6, the Essentials course. Thank you for coming back for yet another week. We are halfway there. So in week 1, we looked at the BrailleSense 6 file manager. We had a bit of an exploration of the machine and talked a bit about some of the other uses and programs and stuff that we won't get time to look at on this course. And then last week, we explored the world of email, and we went through creating an account and sending an email, and we talked about file attachments, and we showed you a function that is coming in the next release of the software, and that was the ability to open an attachment directly from an email, which you currently can't do. So this week we're going to look at the BrailleSense 6 word processor. There's a lot to cover today, and there's a lot of kind of high-level stuff, kind of overview. I'm not going to get a huge amount of time to go into detail on lots of things, so I do apologize for that. But as we always say, if there are specifics, please get in touch with us. You can ask your question at the end of the session if you wish. And of course, I should have also introduced Fanula from Sight and Sound, who's my colleague who's with me as well this evening to help moderate. So if you want to put a message in chat, you can click the chat button and Fanula will see that coming in and we'll make a note of them. Or you can raise your hand and you have an opportunity to speak at the end of the session. Before we start this evening, I've meant to do this for the last 2 weeks and I forgot. We have a technology roadshow coming up on the week of the 9th of October, traveling around Ireland. We'll be starting off on the 9th of October in TU Dublin, in Grange Gorman. On the 10th of October, we're in Waterford. On the 11th, we're in Cork. And the 12th, we're in Galway. So if anyone is interested in coming to meet us and having a look at, there'll be a whole range of technology and some of our charity partners as well. There's lots of stuff happening that week. It also coincides with World Sight Day, which is on the 12th of October. That's the last day of the exhibition. So Fanula is going to put a link in the chat where everybody can click and register or read more about the exhibition, and do come back to us if you have any questions. Okay, so we're talking about the word processor. We will be going back this evening as well to the file manager because they are somewhat linked. Before we talk about the word processor, I should just talk a little bit about where it's useful and some of its limitations. So I think we mentioned in the first week that there are lots of online services like Google Docs and Word Online and other programs that are used in schools. And these programs and software packages and online services, I suppose, are really useful when students are collaborating on projects, for example, on documents, and there may be a number of people working in a group together on the same document, and they can do things in real time. We don't have that luxury with the BrailleSense. Well, we do, but not in an easy way. So you can, in theory, use Google Docs, and you can even use Microsoft Word Online. But the user experience is such that it would be quite difficult, especially for new users, to really do this with confidence. And indeed, for more experienced users, I would not like to do it all the time. So we recommend using what I'm going to show you tonight, which is the BrailleSense 6 word processor. However, do bear in mind that this is a note taker. As I said to you on the first week, this is not like your computer. It's not like a fully fledged laptop. It is a note taker. And as a result, the word processor has some limitations, and we'll explore some of these as we go along through the session this evening. One thing that it can't do, for example, is it can't read documents that have tables. Well, it will read them, but the tables won't be in context and won't make sense. So the word processor does have some limitations, and I suggest that certainly for primary school users, it's going to be adequate. In fact, it's going to be probably more than adequate. For people for people in secondary school, in particular senior ends of secondary school, you can still use it, but you may want to use it in conjunction with something else. For example, you can use the word processor to type whatever you want to type if you're writing an assignment, and then bring it into something like Microsoft Word to clean it up. So you are using a mixture of BrailleSense and your computer or screen reader or screen magnification, whatever you choose to use at that point of the process. We're not obviously doing that stuff tonight. If there's a requirement or if there's thoughts on some kind of course for screen reading, we'll certainly look at that as a separate piece of work. So with all that said, let's talk a little bit about the word processor and some of the things we can do with it. I'm going to start, as I always do each week, from the File Manager by pressing F1.
File Manager, F.
And my BrailleSense 6 says File Manager, and of course we have screen sharing as well, so you'll be able to see as we go along. As we mentioned last week, there are many ways to open programs on the BrailleSense 6. We can type the first letter of the application, in this case, word processor. We press W. We can scroll down to it by pressing space and dot 4 or by pressing the space bar. Well, it's only one move away from File Manager, so we'll scroll down to word processor.
Word processor, W.
And there it is. I just want to scroll one more though.
Notepad, N.
This is the Notepad application. Now, we're not going to look at the Notepad, but I do want to explain some characteristics of each of these programs and why you might use one over the other. So the word processor is the main application that you would use to create and edit documents, and it will create and maintain formatting in those documents, and we'll talk a bit about formatting in a while. The word processor is also the application that you will use if you want to open PowerPoint files or slideshows. So sometimes in school, teachers will give handouts in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. The visually impaired student can open these in Braille and read them as they go along. It is also the application that you will use if you want to send your text to a printer, to like an actual printer as opposed to a Braille printer. So you can print directly from the word processor, and I will talk a bit about printing in a while. The Notepad, on the other hand, is a text-based application that is used to create and manage text and Braille formatted documents. It is also the application that you use if you want to send a text to an embosser or Braille printer that you would have connected to your BrailleSense. And the Notepad can also open PDF and EPUB files. We'll talk about EPUB files next week when we look at reading books. So you may encounter both programs. If you were to open them, they look virtually identical. Lots of the menu structures are the same, but it's important to know where you will use one over the other. And as I say, tonight, we're going to focus on the word processor because it is the application that people tend to use more. So I just scrolled down to Notepad to give you that information. Let's go back up to word processor.
Word processor, W.
And we'll press enter.
Top of document.
And my BrailleSense 6 says top of document, and on my Braille display, I can see my cursor. So when you open the word processor, it creates a blank document ready for you to type. And you can start writing straight away. So I'm just going to write something really quickly.
Hello, this is a test for my English. Homework period, space.
We had a question, if everybody remembers, on week number 1 from somebody who was asking how could they save into a particular folder. And I had asked the person if they'd mind waiting, holding that question. So I'm about to answer that now because we're talking about doing, for example, some English homework that we have just written. So the first thing we're going to do is issue the save command. Now, all these commands can be found in the word processor's menu, which you would get to by pressing the function key F2, just as we did last week, because F2 brings you into the menu relative to the program that you are in at the moment. In this case, it's the word processor menu. But to save us a little bit of time, because there is a lot to do tonight, I'm going to use shortcut keys because I will be going into the menu in a little while and I will show you some stuff in there. So the shortcut key to save is Enter and the letter S. So I'm going to do that now. Press Enter and S.
File save dialog. File name, no name.docs edit combo box.
By default, if you don't give the if you don't give your work a file name, it will call it noname.docx. And then the next one you save, it'll call it noname1.docx and noname2, etc. You'll end up with a lot of no names. It's a bit like Microsoft Word gives these names if you don't put a name on your file. In fact, what Microsoft Word does is it uses the first couple of words that you've written in your document to make the file name. And sometimes that can actually be very helpful. But I don't want to give this a file name just yet because I want to find a folder that I'm going to save this into. Now, by default, the word processor saves all its files inside the Documents folder. So I always suggest to people, create your subfolders inside the Documents folder because it will be easier to find them. And if you remember back in week 1, when we were exploring the file manager, we went into the Documents folder and we created a couple of subject folders inside it. And we did create one called English. So I'm going to press space with the letter B. And I remember space and B because I think of B for browse, because I want to browse for a folder. So space and B will take me out of this file name box and bring me into the list of folders that are in my Documents folder at present.
English folder 16 list item.
So there's a few folders here. I can navigate them by pressing space and .4.
History folder, Irish folder, SAST HR Politics, History folder 2, English folder 16 list item.
And space and .1 to move up. So there's an English folder. So I'm going to press enter here.
No items list item.
And there's no items in this folder. It's empty. But I've just realized this is my homework. I want to create a subfolder inside in English for homework because I want to be very organized. So I want to have a folder in English for my homework and maybe a folder for my books and a folder for my class notes or something. Now, the great thing here is that we don't have to go back out to the file manager to create this folder. We can do it within the word processor. And if you remember back in week 1, the command to create a new folder was enter and F for folder. And guess what? Enter and F also works in the word processor.
New folder dialog. New folder name. New folder edit box.
I'm just going to call this homework and I'm going to press enter.
New folder created. Homework folder 11 list item.
So now I've created a folder called homework and it says 1/1, in other words, 1 of 1. It's the only folder or the only item inside the folder that we created recently, which is called English. So I'm now going to press enter on homework.
No items list item.
And there is no items, but this is where I want to save my file. So I'm going to press space with .4 and 5 to bring me back to the file name. Space with .1 and 2 or B took me out of the file name box to bring me into my list of folders. Space with .4 and 5, which is the reverse, will bring me back to my file name.
File name, no name.docs edit combo box.
I'm just going to call this English homework.
English.
English homework September. And I'm going to press enter.
Saving. Save complete.
Now, I appreciate that all might sound very convoluted. If you're doing this every day, you'll do it without thinking. And if you have your folder structure set up and you know it, you will do it without thinking. This is particularly important, I think, for people in secondary school. Primary school is not such an issue. So we've saved that English file inside our homework folder. Let's just have a look to make sure it's there. So we'll go out of the word processor for a second.
The account owner can walk file manager.
And I'm going to, this time, I'm going to go into the file manager, not the word processor. So remember, we were in the file manager 2 weeks ago. We're going to go back in.
Flash disk 14 list.
And we said there are a number of items here. One is called flash disk. And we said flash disk is the internal storage on the BrailleSense 6. So I'm going to press enter here.
Audiobooks folder 121 list item.
And then I'm going to press D for documents.
Daisy database folder. Documents folder 621 list item.
And I'm going to press enter.
English folder 19 list item.
And I'm going to press
Select
enter
homework
again.
folder 11 list item. Homework folder 1.
And I'm going to press enter on homework.
English homework September.docs 11 list item.
And there's the file we just created, English homework September. And if I press enter here, it's going to open that file in the word processor. Let's see.
Loading. English homework September. Docs open.
It did open the file, and it's going to put my cursor is actually at the top of the file.
End of document homework.
But I've now jumped my cursor to the end of the file, and we'll talk about how I did that in a sec. So the only reason I showed you the file manager there was because I wanted to show you how we had created the folder structure and to prove to you that the folder did indeed exist. Now I'm going to close the word processor again for a sec because I want to show you an alternative way of opening your documents from within the word processor. Whether you choose to use the word processor or the file manager is completely up to you and your students. I actually tend to use a mixture of both, so that's completely up to you. So I'm going to close the word processor just to remind everyone, space and Z, one of our favorite keystrokes because it always closes the open application.
English homework September. Docs 1 list item.
And I'm also going to close the file manager. And I'm going to go back.
The account owner can watch this record. Okay. File manager.
I'm going to go back to the main menu and to file manager. So let's go back now to the word processor.
Word processor.
And press enter.
Top of document.
And now we will issue a new keystroke to open our file. So a couple of minutes ago when we saved, we pressed enter and S. So the keystroke to open a document is enter and O. Hopefully the logic is making sense. So we'll press enter and O.
Open file dialog. File name, edit combo box.
So we're placed in a box where we can type in the file name. And if you happened to know the file name you wanted, then you could type it in here and you could press enter. Or you could scroll down to look at recent files that you have opened. And I'll show you the recent files menu as well in a sec. But in this case, I just want to browse through my folders. So I'm going to press space with B or space with dots 1 and 2 again to browse.
English folder 16 list item. Hit English folder 1.
There's English. I'm going to press enter on English.
Homework folder 1. So English homework September.
And I pressed enter on homework. And there's my English homework September. I'm going to press enter.
Loading. English homework September. Docs open.
And my cursor is at the end of the word homework directly after the full stop. So I'm going to press a new blank line here. And I'm going to say,
I am testing again to see if this works, period.
And I'm going to press enter.
Enter.
Now, some brief discussion on navigating in a document. So if you want to navigate through this document, if you want to jump to the top of the document to go back to the very start, you press space with dots 1, 2, and 3, or L, space and L, will jump you to the top of the file.
Top of document, hello.
My cursor is now sitting on the H or beside the capital H of hello, beside the dot 6 for the capital sign. If I want to jump to the end of the file, I press space with dots 4, 5, and 6.
End of document.
My cursor will always remain wherever I was when I reopen this document. So the BrailleSense 6 will remember your position in the document and bring you back to wherever it is you are. If you're not certain, if you're at the end of the document, it's no harm to press space with dot 4, 5, and 6 anyway, just to be sure. Now, a couple of minutes ago, we saved this document by pressing enter and S. And when we did that, we were asked for a file name. But if I press enter and S again, you'll see that...
Saving. Save complete.
You'll see it just saves it. It doesn't ask me for a file name because it knows the file name already, because we have already opened this document. So this is the very same way as how saving would work, for example, in Microsoft Word. And speaking of saving, there is a setting on the BrailleSense 6 called Auto Save. And you can have this set to save automatically every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. And some people think this is a great idea and love this. I urge a little bit of caution when using this, to be honest. And the reason I do is because when the BrailleSense 6 does an auto save, it temporarily stops everything else for a couple of seconds while it's saving your file. And the problem with that is if you're in mid-flow and typing away and suddenly you get stopped, you can very easily get thrown, especially if you were in an exam. I think it's better to get people used to pressing the save command every couple of minutes, enter an S, to make sure that they're saving themselves. I know if there's an automated save, you should be able to use it. I just think I think it needs a bit of work to be a little more seamless, to be honest. So by all means, use it if you wish, but it's not something I tend to recommend. Let's show you where some of these things are located, because I'm going to sort of jump in and out of menus of the word processor for the next few minutes. And I do apologize. There is an awful lot to get through here. And I know I'm sort of seem to be going through stuff at a very fast pace, but we will have time for questions at the end. So we talked about F2, which brings you into the menu. So let's do that.
File, F, pull down menu.
And let's press enter.
New, N, dialog enter N menu item.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through the options in the file menu for a second, just tell you what's what. So here's the option for new and the shortcut key. And the really useful thing about the BrailleSense 6, it will always read the shortcut keys to us as well. So we can kind of learn them without having to make too much of an effort. The shortcut key to create a new document is enter and N for new. So enter an N, enter an S, enter an O. You can see you can see what's happening here. So I'm going to scroll down with space and dot 4.
Open, O, dialog enter O menu item.
Open, well, we've used that command already. Enter an O. We know how to do that, and we know what happens when we go in to open a document.
Recent file list, R, dialog backspace enter H menu item.
This is the recent file list. This is handy because it logs the last 10 or so documents, I think, that you've been accessing. So if you didn't want to have to go through enter O and space with B and faff about trying to find the correct folder, you could always use recent file list, because all those paths are recorded in the log and your BrailleSense will just find the correct file for you. So if you prefer using recent files and you know it's a file that you accessed, you know, in the last little while, it's likely to be there.
Open documents, D, dialog backspace enter O menu item.
Open documents is something we will look at in a few minutes, because you can open more than one document at a time on the BrailleSense 6, and I will show you that in a couple of minutes.
Save, S, dialog enter S menu item.
This is the save option. We've done this already. Enter an S, and we've seen how it works.
Save as A, dialog space S menu item.
This is the save as option, and I don't like to assume, but I think many people on this call might know the difference between save and save as, because this is not a Braille specific thing. This is the same in, for example, Microsoft Word. If you choose save as, then you're given the option to give the file a new name. And why would you want to do that? Well, you might be working on a document and you want to keep a previous revision clean and separate to a change that you've made. And in that case, you would do save as and save it under a new name.
Export, X, dialog backspace enter X menu item.
This is the export option. This is worth just telling you what it is, because it might be useful for some people. This exports the current document from a Word file to a Braille file or a BRF file. And then you can put this into an embosser and have it embossed. If you have something like the Duxbury Braille translator, then you're probably not going to use this. But if you didn't and you needed to get something embossed quickly on a Braille embosser, it's a quick and handy way to do it.
Print, P, dialog space P menu item.
This is the print option. And print, just worth noting, print is space with P. Enter in P is something else that I cannot remember, but it's not enter in P as all the other commands were. It's space and P to print. I did say I'd talk about printing a little while ago. So if you want to print, you have to connect a printer using the Android system settings, and mostly you have to get an app for the particular printer that you have. So I here under my desk have one of these HP multifunction. It's a printer scanner combo. It's about 7 or 8 years old and it's still going very strong. And I hope it will continue to do so. So I had to download an app from the Android Play Store called HP Print Service. And the minute I installed it, it picked it up immediately. So this is a one-off thing. And we've set these up in schools a lot, where, for example, there might be a shared printer in the secretary's office. And once we connect to that once, it's done. So if you need to print, that's very doable from the word processor.
Settings, E, dialog, enter E menu item.
Okay, this is the settings. I do want to go in here for a minute because there's a few things of note that I want to mention. So I'm going to press enter.
Settings dialog. View format characters. F. Yes, 1, 2 list item.
So there's an option here. The first option says view format characters. And actually, I didn't realize mine was turned on. I want to turn it off, and I would suggest that most of you would want to turn it off. If you have it on, it will show you Braille symbols for things like paragraph marks, for example, when you're reading text. Now, that might throw some new users off because they'll see these weird marks and wonder what they are. But B, for any of us who are Braille readers, there's 32 Braille cells on this thing. It's not actually that much. And if you have 2 cells of that taken up with a paragraph mark that you don't really need to know about, it's probably not a best use of the Braille line that you're trying to get as much Braille onto as possible. So I'm going to actually turn this off by pressing space.
No 2 list item.
Sorry, by pressing space with dot 4. I'm going to tab through this menu. So space with dot 4 and 5 if you don't want to take your hands off the Braille keyboard, or F3 if you want to use the function keys.
Reading unit, M, line 1, 3 list item.
So this is reading unit. This is the unit of measurement, or this is how the BrailleSense 6 will behave when I press space with dot 4 and space with dot 1. It currently moves me up or down one line, but there are other options.
Paragraph 2, 3 list item.
Paragraph or
sentence 3, 3 list item.
Sentence. Now, there are commands to read the current sentence and read paragraphs as well. So I would be inclined to leave this at line.
Line 1, 3.
I'll move on.
Read only, R, no 2 list item.
Read only is something you can apply if you, so an ideal scenario for something like this is if you have a student and you're setting them some reading. So you're opening a document and you're saying to them, read that now for 20 minutes and I'll come back to you. You can make this file, just this file that you've opened for them, read only, so that if they inadvertently hit some keys or they do something, it's not going to impact the file. Read only obviously is turned off by default, but you can turn it on for the particular file you have open if you want.
No 2 list item. Yes, 1, no 2 list.
Sorry.
Automatic save interval. I don't save automatically 1 8 list item.
There's our automatic save interval. You know my feelings about the auto save already. But you can switch it. So space with dot 4.
Every 5 minutes, 2 8 list item.
And I'll scroll down again.
Every 10 minutes, 3 8 list item. Every 20 minutes, 4 8 list item.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it back off.
Don't save automatically 1 8 list item.
And I'm going to do space with 4 and 5 again.
Auto scroll speed, S, 10 35 list item.
I don't use auto scroll, and I'm not sure I know a lot of people who do. You want to be a very competent, fluent, and very fast Braille reader to use auto scroll, but it's worth explaining what it is. Auto scroll means that the Braille display will scroll automatically forward at a set time interval. And I potentially could use it. The reason I don't use it is if you have a momentary lapse when you're reading, and sometimes we tend to drift off for a second then come back, it's too late because the Braille display has passed. You've passed on to the next line. You're there going, what did I read? Now you can stop the auto scroll, but in general, we don't use it, but the option is there if you want it.
Apply settings to all documents. A, yes, 1 2 list item.
This is an option if you make a change. If you change settings here, are they going to be referenced to all documents? Are they going to be applied to all documents that you use? And it's currently set to yes. In the case of read only, for example, you might want to set that to no.
Home and move unit, H, line 1 2 list item.
Home and end move unit, that's space with dot 1 and 3 is the home key, and space with dot 4 and 6 is the end key. And typically that would move you to the start and or end of a line. And there's probably no need to change that.
New document name, N, no name 1 2 list item.
So the new document name, I mentioned this idea of that it creates files called no name every so often, but you actually can change this
Date and time to list
to
item.
either no name or date and time.
No name.
So again, you can choose that if you wish.
Math code T UEB to list item.
And this is the one I wanted to mention, the maths code. It's really important that this is set to UEB because the word processor has a function that allows you to enter mathematical symbols into your document or do your maths homework and even copy text or copy calculations from the BrailleSense 6 calculator, which can be really useful. We don't have time to do the BrailleSense 6 calculator, but I will give you a quick look at the maths mode as well before we finish.
Location info of cursor.
Okay. I'm going to come out of that because I think we have done enough on that menu, but just to show you where that settings menu is.
Selection canceled. Location info of cursor page 1-5 list item. Button guided, press enter to activate.
Okay.
Button annotation, but file manager.
So I'm going to go back to my word processor.
Word processor, top of document.
And I've pressed enter to open it again. Now, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that we can have multiple files open and switch between them. So where are the scenarios that this might be useful? Well, the most obvious one is possibly if a student has a list of questions that they need to be able to refer to and then go back to another file where they may be writing an answer. So let's open the English homework that we created a couple of minutes ago. I'm going to just press, I'm going to use the recent files actually that we talked about a few minutes ago. It'll save us having to look for the folder. So I'll just press F2.
File, F.
I'll press
pull down
enter.
head, new, and recent file list, R.
I'll press enter
dialog
again on
space enter H menu item.
recent file list.
Recent file list dialog. English homework September.docs path of flash disk documents English homework September.docs 1-3 list item.
So there you go. It's the very first file because it is the most recent file that we viewed. It also said there was a lot of verboseness, but it said path of, and then it said flash disk documents English homework. So it was telling us the folder structure rather, or the folder path where it was saved. Anyway, I'm going to press enter to open it.
Blank, loading. English homework September.docs open.
And my cursor
end of document
is at the bottom of the file. Perfect. Now I want to open another file that I'm going to refer to or go back and forward from. So this time I am going to use enter and O because I know it's not in my recent list and I am going to have to find this file. So I'll press enter and O.
Open file dialog.
I'll press
file name, edit combo box.
I'll press space and B to browse.
English homework September.docs 1-1 list item.
Now I'm still in the English homework folder because that's where we were a couple of minutes ago when we opened that file. So we need to come back out of that. So I'll hit the backspace key.
Homework folder 1-1 list item.
If you remember from the file manager 2 weeks ago, if you press the backspace key when you're in a folder, it brings you back one level. So if you're in a subfolder and you press the backspace key, it brings you back to the previous folder. So I need to press backspace again.
English folder 1-6 list item.
And then I need to scroll down to something called
SAST HR policies folder 4-6 list item.
Okay, this is really exciting stuff. I tell you, we're going to look at HR policies because I could think of nothing else that would kind of a meaty file that we can play with.
Company
so
handbooks.
Let's just
health and safety mobile phone policy doc 6-9 list item.
Let's open this. We'll press enter.
Loading. Mobile phone policy doc open.
Okay, so this is a document called mobile phone policy. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here.
This mobile phones at work. The person use of business phones.
Okay, so I've got a mobile phone policy open, but you will also remember a moment ago that we opened our English homework. So just pretend this mobile phone policy document is a list of questions or something I need to read and I need to comment on. Maybe I'm being asked to write a summary of what I've read. So let me just read this very briefly.
Use of business phones and the safe use of mobile phones by employees while driving. Blank.
So the policy is about use of phones, use of personal phones, use of business phones, and safe use of phones while driving. That's the crux of it, I think. So I want to go back to my English homework document, which is still open. To do that, I'm going to press function key F3, or if you do not want to take your hands off the Braille keyboard, space with dots 4 and 5. Let me press F3.
Loading. English homework September.docs open.
Now I'm back in English homework. So I'm just going to write here and say this policy.
This follows this.
I wrote that wrong. Is about using mobile
phones
while driving. It's late
driving
at night. I clearly can't Braille properly. So I've written that, and now I'm going to go back to my other document to read a bit more. So I'll press F3.
English homework September.docs save. Yes prompt button.
And actually it wants me to save it because I have made a change. So I will say yes.
Saving. Save complete. Loading. Mobile phone policy doc open.
So what's actually happening here is we're switching between documents, but actually in the background, the BrailleSense 6 is opening and closing the files as we need them. So we think there's more than one document open. There isn't really. It's working its magic in the background, but we're able to switch between those two documents and keep working between them. Now, you can do that up to 6 different documents and keep pressing function key F3, and it will circle around between all the documents. So if I go again.
B policy. Blank. It is sight and sounds policy that use of personal mobile phones, including text messaging, shall be.
Okay, and I'm going to press F3 again.
Loading. English homework September.docs open.
And now I'm back in the English homework area. So if you have a situation where you want to open more than one document, you can do that in the word processor, and just remember to use F3 to move from one file to the next. Now, the little caveat about this is if you're opening more than one document, and let's say you're opening an exam paper or a list of questions, and the student has a blank document that they're going to write their answers in, you need to create and save the blank document first. So the blank document that the whatever the document is the student is going to write in needs to be the first file to be opened, and then you can open the rest. So the workflow would be that you would go into the word processor, it would create a new file, you would save it and give it a name, and then you'd go ahead and open the rest of your files. Okay, let's keep this mobile phone policy open for a moment, because I want to show you or talk to you about bookmarks. And then we're going to go and talk about spell check. And then I think, I'm watching the time, by that point we'll stop and take some questions. So bookmarks in files are really handy because you can create searchable points or breadcrumbs or drop breadcrumbs at certain points of a file, and then quickly navigate back to that point in the file. So let me go to the top of the document.
Top of document, hello. Homework. I am testing again to see if this.
I should be in the other document, shouldn't I? So let me go to the mobile
phone policy doc open.
And let me go to the top of this document.
Top of document site. Limited. Policy on mobile phones in the workplace.
Okay, policy on mobile phones in the workplace. My cursor is on the work on the W of workplace. I want to put a marker in here. So with marks in files, there are 26 marks in total you can create. Each mark has a letter of the alphabet that is associated with it. So you don't give marks actual names, you just type a letter for your mark. So the first mark I'm going to create, then in that case, is going to be mark A. So to create a mark, I press enter and the letter M.
Mark name, edit box.
And I'll press A.
A. Mark inserted.
Okay, and I'm going to scroll down a bit.
A blank. Use of business of mobile phone driving blank. B policy.
And where it says policy, I want to create another mark. So I'm going to press enter and M.
Mark name.
And I'm going to call this B.
B. Mark inserted.
Scroll down.
It is new paragraph. See procedures.
To procedures, and I'm going to press enter and M.
Mark name.
And
Edit
I'm going
box.
to press C.
C. Mark inserted.
So I've created 3 marks. I'm going to scroll down a bit further.
New paragraph.
By the way, I've been using the reading command there to jump by paragraph. If you've got a very big document and you want to scroll around, jump by paragraph, space with dot 5 and 6 to read forward by paragraph, and space with dot 2 and 3 to go back. Now let me jump to a mark to go to a mark in a document. So I'm midway. I'm a good bit down through this document now. I'm going to go a bit further down.
New paragraph. Employees who are charged with traffic violations results.
So I'm going to jump to a mark, and the keystroke to jump to a mark is enter and J.
Jump to mark. Edit box.
Well, I want to go back to mark B. And sure enough,
B policy.
I'm back at policy. That's the mark I created. I want to jump to the very top of the document. Of course, I could press space with dots 1, 2, and 3, but let me do it by doing the mark. I'll do enter and J.
Jump to mark.
And
edit
press
box.
A. And sure enough, I get workplace, because that's where I put I said my cursor was on workplace, and that's where the mark was created. When you save your document after creating marks, the mark points are also saved with it, and they will hold the next time you open that same document. So they're kind of an underused feature, but they're actually really important. Okay, a couple of quick things before we go on to spell check. And I really feel we're rushing this, and there's probably lots of other things I could tell you about the word processor, but I did mention at the start that there are some things it doesn't do very well. There's a function in the word processor to allow you to center text, and to allow you to bold text, and to allow you to underline text and apply some other stylistic changes, which is really good. The challenge is that sometimes it's not clear for the Braille user to know if those changes have actually been made. So I want to give you a few keystrokes that might be of use. So backspace, enter, and N for November.
Read font info. Font.
This is a little dialogue that reads the font info. And there are a number of characteristics it lets you look at. So the font, in this case, it says is Times New Roman. I will scroll down.
Font style, bold to 11 list item.
The font style is bold, or at least of this, because it's the title of the document.
Font size, 11:311 list item.
The size is 11 point.
Font color, black 411 list item. Underline, none 511 list item. Underline color, black 611 list item. Strike through, none 711 list item.
Okay, so you get the idea. You can flick through this little dialogue, and when you want to close it, you can press F4, and brings us back to our document. Now, if I wanted to underline just this little piece of text.
Blank, workplace, policy on mobile phones in the workplace.
I'm going to use what are called selection commands to do this. So, and this is something that we show people when we're doing training, when we do training on the BrailleSense, but it is a useful thing just to run through very quickly. So if I want to mark some text for selection because I want to do something with the text, whether that be to copy it or cut it or to delete it, or in this case, to apply underlining, I'm going to go to the top of this file, the very top.
Document site.
And my cursor is on sight and sound. And I'm going to create or start creating what's called a block of text. And I'm going to do that by pressing Enter and B.
Start selection.
So the BrailleSense says Start selection. Now, as I move my cursor, it's going to be selecting or marking the text as I move until such point as I bring my cursor to where I want the selection to stop.
Limited. Policy on mobile phones in the workplace.
There we go. There's workplace.
New paragraph.
So I'll put my cursor.
Apostrophe. .6. Apostrophe. New paragraph. Apostrophe. New paragraph.
So my cursor is just after workplace. Now I'm going to underline that whole section, policy on mobile phones in the workplace. And to do underlining, I'm going to press Control and U. And you might say, where is the Control key? Well, if you remember in week 1, we were talking about the layout of the device. On either side of the spacebar, there are 2 keys, Alt and Control, which are very rarely used, but in this instance, they will be used. And the Control key is on the left of the spacebar.
Underline single.
So I pressed Control and U and it said underline single.
Blank.
Now I'm going to go back to the top of my document again, space with dot 1, 2, and 3.
Top of document site.
And I'm going to press my command to read font information again, which is backspace, enter, and N.
Read font info. Font Times New Roman 111 list item.
Now, this is the same font Times New Roman. We want to scroll down to hear the underline state.
Font size, font color, underline, single 511 list item.
Well, there we go. We've underlined the text because a minute ago it said underline none or underline no, but now we have underlined the text. So that's how you can underline and apply some formatting. You can also apply heading styles if you want. And this is all great, but to get the information, to read the information is not always as easy. So if you were doing this with something like JAWS, for example, on Microsoft Word, you would find the experience much, much easier. And it might be something that we do in the future to show people how to do that as well. Okay, now we have a couple of minutes. I'm just going to very briefly talk about spell check because it's definitely a function that people may want to know about. I will also mention again, because we said it at the beginning a couple of weeks ago, it's also a function that we can disable if necessary. For example, if people are doing exams. So I'm going to close my word processor for a sec.
Mobile phone policy doc save. Yes prompt button. No prompt button.
The reason I wanted me to save it, of course, is because I applied an underline to some of the text, but I don't want to save it because it's not my document to save.
Button dipped window. This meeting is being required. Manager
to the word processor with a new document. All right, let's just write something really quickly.
I am looking.
And I am putting purpose, I'm going to put purpose typos in here.
Forward to the weekend and am hoping that it does not run a space.
Okay. Sometimes we're asked about this. The BrailleSense 6 does not have the functionality that, for example, Microsoft Word has, where it will do the automatic correcting. So you won't hear if something is misspelt when you're spelling it, unless, of course, you're using speech and something sounds really weird, you might question it. So I've just written something really quickly. Let's go back to the top of the document, space with dots 1, 2, and 3.
Top of document.
And I want to initiate or start the spell checker. The keystroke to do that, this is in the menus of the word processor, but the keystroke to do that is enter and the letter K for kilo.
Range, whole document 1-4 combo box.
It asks me, what do I want to check? And in I think the majority of cases, you will want to check the whole document. There are other options there, but I think in most cases, you'll want to check the whole document. So let's just press enter.
Searching, forward.
So it's told me, my cursor is on the letter F of forward. I did a for sign, FOR sign, and I spelled forward FORWARD. So I have one too many R's in the document. I'm going to tab through the dialog here. So to tell me to see what I can change.
Change word forward edit box.
So it tells me change word forward, and it's put the cursor in an edit box where I could, if I wanted, type the word if I knew the correction. If I knew I had made a correction, I could type it straight away if I wanted, but I'm actually not sure how to spell it. So I'm going to press space with dots 4 and 5 again, or you can use F3.
No change 1 list item.
And
no change 1 list item.
I don't believe it. It didn't pick it up. So it didn't actually, it's not clever enough to pick up forward. So we'll try for the next word.
Skip once.
So just skip. We'll skip that. This was the option to skip this word. We'll go back and correct it ourselves in a minute.
Searching, weekend.
So here's the word weekend with only one E. I need to change. So we'll press the tab key.
Change word weekend edit box.
And we'll tab again, space
No
with 4 and
change
5.
1 4 list item.
So here is, it has a couple of options. So first of all, it says no change. That's 1/4. And no change might be valid in some cases, like someone's surname, for example. I would think maybe Fanula's name is not in that spell checker. So if we spelled Fanula, it might mark that as wrong, but it's not. So if we do space with .4 here, it'll bring us through the options that are available to us.
Weekend 2 4 list item.
Look at that. There's weekend. So that's the one I want. Now let me press the tab key again, F3 or space with 4 and 5.
Skip once, backspace S.
I don't want to skip it.
Skip all, backspace I button.
Skip all is useful, obviously, if the spell checker thinks that you have misspelt something throughout a file, but you haven't.
Modify once, backspace C button.
Here's modify once or
modify all, backspace.
Modify all is also a really useful one. If you think you've spelt the same thing wrong all the time, I'm just going to press enter here. Modify once or modify all doesn't matter in this case because the word is only used once.
Word replaced. 15 words checked to misspellings found, 1 words corrected.
So there's only one word corrected, and here's the word forward. Just let's change that because I'm kind of getting fussy about it now. So I'm going to put my cursor just beside the letter, the extra R, and delete that, and I think that looks better. Okay.
Top of document I.
Right, very, very last thing to tell you about is maths mode. We mentioned this earlier on, and it's one that we talk to people about a little bit. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time using it, but I am going to tell you how to turn it on and how to get access to mathematical symbols if you don't happen to know them. I didn't study UEB maths. It wasn't around when I was in school, so I am not by any means an authority on UEB maths. I'm just going to close the word processor for a sec.
No prompt button.
And I'm going to come back into it in a minute.
Button coded, press enter to activate. File manager.
Sorry for the notifications. That's Zoom.
Word processor.
Press enter again to open the word processor.
Top of document.
So when the word processor opens, we're in literary mode, let's say. And if we want to switch to maths mode, we press the backspace key and the letter M.
Start UEB mode. Black.
Now, the BrailleSense says start UEB mode. In other words, it's telling us this is UEB maths. We've given them some feedback to say that message should be a little more, is the word useful or something? It should just be a bit more maybe descriptive as to what you're in. But we're now in maths mode. So if I was to write, and by the way, the shape of the cursor changes from 2 dots to 1 dot. So as a Braille user, that's how you know you're in maths mode. So 25 plus 25 equals 50, and I'll press enter.
25 plus 25 equal 50.
Okay, thank God my UEB maths, basic UEB maths worked. But if I didn't know a symbol and I'm in maths mode, I can press space with the letter H.
Operations. O. Menu item.
So there's a couple of things here. There's operations.
Comparative symbols.
There's
C.
Comparative
Menu
symbols.
item.
I hope there's no maths teachers here.
Punctuation. P.
Punctuation.
Menu measurement symbols.
And measurement
M.
symbols.
Menu
so let me
item.
go to
Operations.
I'll press enter.
Menu item. Plus sign. Dot minus sign. Dot 5 then 3-6 list item.
So it very helpfully not just lists the signs, but it also speaks the Braille code or the Braille keys that you need to press in order to get this sign. Now, if I wanted
times. Dot 5 then 2, 5, 6 list item.
If I want that sign, I can just press enter.
Help closed. Cancel.
The time sign has been entered. And if I over time, I suppose the idea is as I use that space and H to learn my signs, the BrailleSense is speaking them. I learn them over time without having to make a huge effort, I suppose, to learn them all at one time. And there are a number of, as you've seen there already, a large number of categories of UEB signs available, as there are also in the calculator, which is also UEB compliant. Okay, we've done an awful lot on the word processor tonight. I'm sorry it was very rushed, and it was probably the longest session in terms of presentations that we've done to date. So let's stop and see if there's any questions or comments or queries. And please don't ask a maths question because I don't think I can answer it. But Fionnuala, I don't know if you have anything you want to reference first.
I know nothing about maths either.
Right.
So.
Right. We're not going to answer maths questions then.
It's not my forte. Sorry, I'm slow on the uptake tonight. Anna has I'm not sure, I need to read it. Is it a question or a comment? In school at the moment, we mainly use Notepad. As you said, all get saved by default in the document folder. Would saving to specific folders work the same way for Notepad as you described for the word processor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the short answer is yes, Anna. In the very same way, the save commands in the Notepad are the very same. Where the Notepad differs is in the printing, because it sends to an embosser, and it also wouldn't have some of those formatting functions that we talked about earlier on, like getting the font and styles. But for what you're talking about, yes.
That's great. Good to have an answer to that.
So if there's any other raised hands, if anyone wants to ask something,
yeah, just let us know.
Feel free to let us know. I'm going to get rid of my maths file because
button leave meeting, press enter to activate. File manager.
Are you in a hurry to get out of here, Stuart?
Yeah. And just to say that next week, we are going to be looking at books and reading material, and we'll be exploring different formats and how to access reading material and some of the stuff you can do. So I think lots of people are may have questions about books and specific reading materials. So we'll be doing that next week. If there's any other questions about word processor,
not at the moment.
You can always email us as well if there is anything that comes up after the session today. I should just say, as a very last thing, you can also save from the word processor directly to cloud drives. So if it's Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox, you can save from the word processor directly to those drives as well. Of course, make sure you're connected to the internet before you do that. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming along. We're looking forward to our last session next week. We're probably going to ask you next week as well to fill out a little survey, because we'd really like to know what you thought of the sessions and what you might like to see in the future. So I know people hate filling out those feedback forms, but we'd be very grateful, I think. So we might talk a bit about that next week, Fionnuala, when everyone's here. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Brilliant. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday at 8 o'clock.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks, Emil, Fionnuala. Thanks, everybody.